Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Now, the last topic or the last word which was used as a heading of the chapter, bones. Before that also we study about the bones, but there we study about the bones of fish which were related to their food items or food habits, or the bones of the animals. With those bones of the animals, archaeologists, they try to collect the idea or information about that, the types of animal, whether they were domesticated or they were used for the cultivation of the land, or they were used for having their meat as their main food item. Now, how to differentiate the people who they were living in those days, whether the social differences were practiced or not? If it was there, then how it was practiced? So this is a great question for that. This is the tracking the social differences. Means that the concept of the rich and poor, where this concept was existing or not. Let us see in this part of that how these archaeologists they try to find it out. They have planned strategies to analyze social and economic differences. Not only that, their living areas, their settlements, but economically, whether the differences were existed in the society or not. This is living with a particular culture include the study of burials. Now, by studying the burials, these archaeologists, they try to depict these differences, which was basically based on that, the difference, how it was followed in the society, which was based on the economy of the people. So, at the burials in Harappan sites, the dead were generally laid in pits. Because in this Harappan sites, in the Lothal also, latter part you will see that the picture also of a pit. There you can find it out that how the deads were buried inside the pit along with their commodities, the things which were used while they were alive. So after their death, such commodities, such things were buried with them. With this concept that they have life after death, which these utensils, these ornaments can be used by the human in their next life. This is now some of the pits, because in Harappan sites, what they found that archaeologists, they generally found that their deads were buried in the pits, and these pits were lined up by bricks. See this is the utensils. These are the utensils. By studying these, this is the dead body. The bones are now found, are available to study. Skeleton, human skeleton. And these are the utensils which is used by the people when they were alive, and after the death it was buried along with them. So with this feeling that they can use it in their next life. So life after death was a concept among the people. Now, coming to discuss about that, the social differences. Our topic is about that, the social differences, the differences which were existed. Some of the burials contain ornaments. What it is written over here? Ornaments. Just now we saw one dead body only and only with the utensils, pottery. But in other pits, what the archaeologists found, they found ornaments, pottery, that maybe believe that these things can be used after life. Some of the burial sites, they found the copper mirrors as well. In those days, glass mirror was not available. So copper mirror was used to see their faces. So in some of the sites, burial sites, it has been found. Jewelries were found in both men and women. This was used by both men and women. This means that the both men and women used ornaments. This is, but in general, what it says, Harappans, coming to this about the jewelries, which were also found on the burial sites of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. But one unique thing was found by archaeologists as that jewelries were found in both men and women used ornaments. So it shows that men and women, both they were fond of wearing ornaments, wearing jewelry. Then, in general, Harappa never believed in burying precious thing with the dead. So what our topic was, that the social differences. Social differences, but what it says, another important fact which has been just found by archaeologists in Harappans, the burial sites and the pits which were excavated by archaeologists at the Harappan sites, what they believed. Believed means what they found from the sites, from the burial sites, that these Harappan people, they did not bury precious, costly material or the costly jewelries, costly items were not engraved with the dead by the Harappan people. Then it comes about that studying artifacts, the facts which is available and related to the art and craft, sculpture. Artifacts is the another strategy to find out the social differences. Suppose that jewelry which were, or the ornaments which were worn by both men and women, whether they were very costly or not, still that the some of the confusion and suspicion is there and the differences is there in the opinion of the archaeologists. But here again we are coming to discuss about that. This is the another strategy which we are trying to find out whether these social differences were existed or not. So these archaeologists, according to the facts after the excavation, what they found, they have just divided into the two categories, utilitarian and luxuries. This is for the common people. Common people. And this is for the rich or the costly. In a simple language, we can say so. Utilitarian means that made of stone. Try to get these points. This is made of stone or clay. Pottery, needles, flesh, rubbers, usually found distributed throughout the settlement. When we are talking about the utilitarian, this is for the common people and the common sites of the Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. These artifacts were found. They were basically made up of either stone or clay. And what type of the things which were excavated? They were pottery, needles, because weaving work was also done by them. So needles were also there, flesh rubbers, and they were usually distributed throughout the settlement. Next, it comes about the luxuries. Luxury artifacts. These were the rare objects, not made up of stone or clay. Rare objects were used to make these different types of the materials. These rare objects made up of valuable materials concentrated in large settlements like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. Utilitarian artifacts were found throughout the settlement, basically in the small settlements. But these luxuries and the luxurious artifacts were found in the large settlement of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. Example is given. Little pots were used as the perfume bottles. This small is used for as a perfume bottles. This is sculpture, we can say so, saddle and quirt, pestle and mortar. It is very simply used to grind the cereals, corn. So these are the different stones, the different types and the shapes and size of the stones are being used to grind, to mix the food grains. These are the different types of the pots which are found after the excavations in the settlements of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. Then it comes about that the raw material, procurement of the raw material. For these craft production, from where these raw materials has been procured, from where they were bringing all these raw materials, whether it was locally available or it has been imported from the different lands. So what are the raw materials which is used to make these different types of the pottery and the jewelry? The variety of materials used to make beads is remarkable. Beads, especially this is about the beads, which was remarkable because different varieties were used. Here it is written carnelian. It is a beautiful red color. Jasper, this is the Sanskrit name. Suryakantham, means as bright as like the sun rays. But it was red in color. Then next it is used crystal, quartz, agate. This is Vadurium. Metal like copper, bronze and gold. These already we have discussed earlier also. Bronze Age civilization. Chalcolithic age was there. So these three different metals were now in use. So these were used to make the artifacts, to produce the craft work. They use this material or metal for the production of the pots. Then shell, this is seashell. Terracotta or burnt clay. These two materials were very commonly used. These were the very commonly used, and many of that the pots, potteries, toys were found made up of terracotta and with the burnt clay. Now coming to the techniques. Already we are talking and discussing throughout the chapter unique feature. architecture was unique, planning was unique. They have developed so many new things in their settlement. So that way, they also use the different techniques to prepare to make the craft. Sometimes beads were made of two or more stones by cementing together. Can you imagine about that? This means that two stones together means this the sum of the sticky substance were also been developed. While some stones with gold caps, the capping is also, covering is also been developed. They were made up of different shapes, such as cylindrical shape, then spherical, barrel shaped, and segmented. So these are the different shapes. Imagine about that, the people, how they were just making with their hands by using the small tools. Some were decorated by painting and some had design etched on them. Means that they are making the lines by doing the scratches work, scratching on that. With the scratch, they are making and creating the different decorative work. They made bangles, ladders, large spoon when the cooking and the mixing work started. Just now we have seen that the square and saddle or mortar and pestle, we can say so. The same way when they have started cooking, they also need the spoon to stir it. The concept of the ladle, metal was most probably used to make the ladle. The bangles out of shells. Nowadays also, these bangles are available off the shelf. If you visit to the coastal area, you can get it. Ivory bangles are very costly. So in those days also, during the Harappan period also, the people, they were constructing, they were making. These are the different, the jewelries. This picture I have collected from the archaeological gallery. One of the most important site, Lothal. From there onwards, I have collected this picture, and these are the different, the forms of the beads. The left hand side, you can check that these are the different, the beads which has been made by the people with the help of the stone cutting. Some of them were made up of the gold covering, then pasting of the two different stones. And these are the tools which has been used by this Harappan and Mohenjo-daro people to develop all these ornaments, to develop all these artifacts. These are the beads, the different shapes and the sizes. The different, this thickness is also there. The difference in thickness. This is the cylindrical, round in shape. So this way, these were the people, how they were interested and they were developing this new technology. Special tools which were used for the craft work. Specialized drills have been found at the Chanu-Daro, Lothal, and more recently at Dholavira. Lothal and Dholavira is a very famous site, and many things are now excavated by the archaeologists. Both these places are in Gujarat. Nagesar and Balakot. This is Dholavira, Lothal. These two are in Gujarat. Nageswar, this is also in Gujarat. They were a specialized center for making of the shell objects. This is the coastal area. Coastal area. The end point of the Indian mainland. Nageswar is at the western side of the western tip of the Indian mainland, which is on the coast of the Arabian Sea. And this site is very famous for the shell making objects. Chanudaro was the center of crafts production. It was specialist in bead making, shell cutting, metal working, seal making, and weight making. Chanudaro was actually a small settlement. A small settlement, we have just discussed that large settlement was Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, and many of that the settlements which were very small. Means less number of people were living in that settlement. Less number of people were small. Chanudaro was also among one of the smaller settlement. But the people living in Chanudaro, they were specialized in bead making, shell cutting, metal working, seal making, and the weight making. These were the main activities done by the people living in this settlement. This is the site of the Lothal. This is the picture of the Lothal. This is the craft production unit. Bead making kiln at Lothal. Bead making was done. And the tools and the instruments for crafts. These are the tools which were used by the Harappan and the Mohenjo-daro people to produce the craft work or the manufacturing of the craft. Now, how were centers of production identified by archaeologists? It's very simple. How they have found this, the sites which were identification was done by them, which were the craft production unit, which were the human settlements, which people were just depending and doing the agricultural activity. So it's very simple for them. By getting the evidences of the tools, raw material, unfinished objects, rejects, waste materials, etc. Not only that, if suppose that the beads are found, so the archaeologists, they can understand that bead making process was done over there. They did not find any of the bead over there, but they found the raw material spread over there. The waste material, after making of the ornaments, making of the crafts, the waste materials were scattered over there. So by studying all those things also, archaeologists, they have collected the evidence, they found the evidence about the craft production units. So these are the facts which were available over there, which were collected by the archaeologists, and with the help of these pictures only, these means the broken part of the materials, they try to depict what type of the pottery were used by them. Then it comes about the procurement of the materials, from where they were bringing all these materials. These materials were coming not the locally available. All the materials which were used by the Harappan people were not locally available. Some of them, they were brought from the outside of our country also. The Harappan procured materials, procured means they bring the materials for craft production in various ways. What are the two methods are written over here? Two methods. The first is to procuring materials for craft production. They established settlements in Nageswar, Balakot and Sortugai. Is it Sortugai? It is in Afghanistan now. Then they might have sent expeditions to areas such as the Khetri region of Rajasthan. Earlier also that we have discussed about that, the Khetri region. Not in those days, but even now also, Khetri is the largest production region of copper in India. Now also it is there. We are getting our copper maximum amount from the Khetri region of Rajasthan. In those days also, during the Harappan period, during the Harappan civilization, they might have sent expedition to areas such as the Khetri region of Rajasthan for copper and South India for gold. South India, it is Suvarnagiri. What is the name? It is Suvarnagiri. Suvarnagiri. It is present day in Karnataka. Present day it is in Karnataka. So gold was collected from South India. So these were the places from where this materials were procured by the Harappan people. Nagesar and Balakot were areas for shell. Already both of them are lying on the coastal area. Sortugai is far off Afghanistan, was the base source of lapis lazuli. Very costly item. Nowadays also it is very popular, this variety of stone. And this is the Lothal, which was near sources of carnelian. Carnelian, the red color material was there, and the metal from the Rajasthan. Metal here means copper. Carnelian was a stone, red in color. This is red in color. But the expeditions to the Khetri region and the South India established communication with local communities. Obviously, when the people they try to procure the material, they have to interact with the local people. So in the Khetri region and as well as the South India, basically they go for the collection to procure the gold. South India is for the gold. Suvarnagiri is the name of the hill or mountain, we can say so, from where this gold has been procured. So they have started communicating with the local communities who they were living in this Khetri region and the southern India. Now the concept with this craft production, with the movement from one place to another, the concept of the trade also developed. So it is written over here, trade ties. How they have developed this? Trade relations with the different countries, with the distant land. Archaeological finds suggest that the Harappans maintained long distance trade. Long distance trade. This is the fact also been found by the archaeologists when they went for the excavation of the Harappan sites. The main source, what they have got, the main source of this, the long distance contact, which includes the seals, weights, dies and beads. These four different items or the materials which has been found on the different lands. This is, now it is written probably, the trade contacts with the Oman Peninsula. It is in a Gulf country. Arabian country. Then chemical analysis has shown that both the Omani copper and the Harappan artifacts have traces of nickel, which suggest a common origin. Can you imagine that? How nicely this archaeologist, they had tried to compare it. First, they have found that they tried to find the fact about that how these people they had their trade relation with the distant land like Oman. Then how they have compared it, because Omani copper, the traces of the Omani copper and the Harappan artifacts have the traces of nickel, which throw the light of the common origin. They have and origin place is the sea. There are similarities between certain other types of objects found at this site. Similarities between the certain other types of objects. So what are the similar objects which has been found? Harappan jar coated with a thick layer of black clay has been found in Oman. Now we are coming to the similarities. First, we found that the metal which has been found, they were similar. Now, the potteries, the jar, which is found in Oman and which is found in our country, how they were of the similar. Mesopotamian texts refers to contact with the regions named Dilmun, which is probably it is written over here, the islands of Bahrain. These all are in the Central Asia. Magan and Meluha. Possibly they were having the trade relation with the Harappa, because they have a trade connectivity with the help of the water bodies. Through the water bodies, they reach to these distant lands. Because Mesopotamian seals were found in the Harappan sites and Harappan seals were found at the Mesopotamian sites. Now the arrival of the Aryans. This is the most important thing which we are coming to discuss now about the who were Aryans. Around 1500 BC, a group of nomadic peoples known as the Aryans moved out of their homeland in Central Asia. From where they were? They were from the Central Asian region. And they moved away from their homelands and entered in the lower part of the Central Asia. Then they moved south into northern India. South into the northern India and conquered the Harappans and created a new Indian society based on Aryan culture and their own institutions. So this is now, after this the 1900. Since 1800 BC, no evidences were found. Then again the evidences were available, or after the excavations, the archaeologists they found, which was related to the 1500 BC. In between, nothing was found on these sites. So this is all about that Indus Valley civilization. Mature Harappan phase was 2600 BC to 1900 BC, before Common Era. Before 2600 BC, it was considered as the early Harappan. Then this period is considered as the mature Harappan, also known as this civilization as a Bronze Age civilization. This civilization is also known as the Bronze Age civilization. And after this 1900 BC, this sudden this entire civilization was abandoned. 1800 onwards, no 1800 BC onwards, no any evidences has been found. Again, that the evidences which were started getting available with this archaeologist is in the year 1500 BC with the coming of the Aryans. They were the Central Asian nomadic people. Now, discovering the Harappan civilization, the role played by the one of the most important archaeologists, Cunningham. What role he played in this civilization? First of all, he was the first Director General of ASI, means Archaeological Survey of India. What it is? Archaeological Survey of India. And what is his contribution? He started archaeological excavations in the mid-19th century. Mid-19th century after the 1850s. And his main interest was the archaeology of early history from 6th century BCE to 4th century BCE. This is Common Era. BCE, before Common Era. This is the before Common Era. And CE means this is the Common Era. What we have to write over here? The Common Era. And later periods. Not only that, between the 6th century BC to 4th century CE, but later periods also were covered by Cunningham. He used accounts left by Chinese pilgrims who had visited the subcontinent between the 4th century to the 7th centuries. This is about that, the Cunningham. What he has, not only that he has done the excavations by himself, but he has collected the accounts of Chinese pilgrimages also. Chinese pilgrims like Faxian, Yuanzhang, who they have visited in our country in search of the different things like religion. In the next, this later chapters, you have to study about that, the Buddhism. During the period of Asoka, how the Chinese pilgrims, they have visited to India, and their accounts, how it has been useful for the archaeologists to tell us about that, the fact, what they observed in the Indian society. After this, the Cunningham also collected, documented and translated inscriptions found during his survey. While he was doing his survey, he has not only that the collection of the books and the documents he did, but he has translated also many of that the Indian local languages. Many things which were available in the local languages, translation work was also done by him. Site like Harappa did not fit well in his area of investigation. Harappan artifacts were found during the 19th century and some of these reached Cunningham. But he did not realize how old these were as they were not part of the itinerary of Chinese pilgrims. It was not planned. Whenever he tried to read the account given by the Chinese pilgrims, he did not find any fact about that, the Harappans. It was not in their planning and was not known as an early historic city. These Chinese pilgrims, they were not planned in their itinerary also. The Chinese pilgrims, they did not explain about this, the historic city, the early historic city. What they have observed between the 6th century and the 4th century CE, BCE and CE, that much only they have written about that. So the Cunningham was also not able to find out the fact about this. An Englishman gave a Harappan seal to Cunningham. How interesting it was. This Harappan seal was given by one of the Englishmen to Cunningham, but he was unable to place it in the time frame with which he was familiar. But this Cunningham, as he was not having any idea about the Harappan sites or Harappan civilization, so he was unable to fix it from which time period this seal is been related. So he was not familiar. He thought that the Indian history began with the first cities in the Ganga Valley. So what concept he has developed? With the Ganga Valley. And where is the Ganga river? Where it is? It is in present day Uttar Pradesh. Or we can say that Uttarakhand. Uttarakhand, a new state is there in the Himalayan region. So it is there about this. So it is probably that he missed the significance of Harappa. So most probably he is not able to, as he was not able to fix the time period with that seal. So according to his view, his assumption, he thought that this one is related to the Ganga Valley region, the cities which were first developed in the Ganga Valley. Next important is about the Marshall and R.E.M. Wheeler. His contribution in the reconstruction of the civilizations. What were their contribution? These two archaeologists. Just now we discussed about Cunningham, now coming to discuss about Marshall and R.E.M. Wheeler. Then Dayaram Sahni is also there, and the Rakhal Das Banerjee. They also found similar seals at Harappa and Mohenjo-daro respectively. Based on these finds in 1924, John Marshall, now he was the Director General of ASI. John Marshall, he was the Director General of ASI in 1924. And he announced the discovery of a new civilization in the Indus Valley to the world. He was the first man who has given the announcement about that there were the civilization which flourished in the Indus Valley region, which were considered as the earliest civilization of the world. Marshall tended to excavate along regular horizontal units measured uniformly throughout the mound, ignoring stratigraphy in the site. What he did uniformly throughout the mound. Throughout the mound, he has visited, excavated, and then he has started depicting about that the Indus Valley civilization. Excavation was also done along the regular horizontal units. Regular horizontal units. And then after that, he has started depicting about that how these sites were there during the period of when the people of this civilization alive. This is the picture of this RSR, Mortimer Wheeler, and this is John Marshall. This meant that all the artifacts, this is the depiction and the evidences which has been collected by John Marshall. What he says that all the artifacts recovered from the same unit were grouped together, even if they were found at different stratigraphy layers. But they have to be placed at they were found and they were grouped together. As a result, valuable information about the context of these finds were irretrievably lost. Now, this is the information, but finally what happened? What the result, what the output came? The valuable information about the context of these finds, the facts which has been discovered, which has been excavated by these archaeologists were irretrievably, they have lost. Then after R.E.M. R.E.M. Wheeler, what he did, he rectified this problem. Why this problem was faced by John Marston? He tried to rectify this and he recognized that it was necessary to follow the stratigraphy of the mound rather than dig mechanically along uniform horizontal lines. The mistake which was done by John Marston were taken care by R.E.M. Wheeler. So what he did now, he recognized that it was necessary. Stratigraphy was not followed by Marston. But now R.E.M. Wheeler, he thought that this is very necessary to follow this stratigraphy of the mound rather than dig mechanically. The digging mechanically along the uniform horizontal lines. Now, what were the problems faced by archaeologists in the interpretation of religious practices of Harappa? So, what it is there? The Harappan script remains undeciphered till date. It is not been the entire, whatever the 375 to 400 signs and symbols were used by Harappans. What they found, their writing style was from right to left. But still, their scripts remain undeciphered. Material remains help the archaeologists to reconstruct Harappan life. So the findings, what they have got or collected after the excavation, they try to depict the lifestyle of the people on the basis of their remains. On the basis of remains, not by that the written records which were left by them. Organic materials such as cloth, what we are talking about these days, organic material. At that time also, organic material, cloth, leather, wood and reeds generally decomposed, while stone, burnt clay, metal, etc. survived. As it is this cloth were made up of the organic material, so these were decayed. Reeds also decayed, but the ornaments, then beads, stones, burnt clay and the metal like copper, which were still survived. And after excavation, with those findings only, archaeologists, they try to depict their lifestyle. Materials such as pottery, tools, ornaments and the household objects are also available. In many of the sites, these are the household objects, what the different types of the pottery which were used by them were also found. In many of that, the burial pits also, they found this the different types of the pots which were used by them. Then jewelry were also found in that many of the Harappan and Mohenjo-daro sites. So recovering artifacts is just the beginning of the archaeological enterprise. So whatever the recovery, they have excavated after the excavation, whatever the artifacts they got. On the basis of that, these archaeologists, they have started beginning of their excavation, beginning of their studies and giving the ideas about that, how the Harappan people were, how the first civilization were existing on the earth. Then the second most complicated thing is that in terms of function, archaeologists have to decide whether, for instance, an artifact is a tool or an ornament or both. Artifact, for instance, it is given. If suppose they are in a form of a tool or an ornament or both, something meant for ritual use. This is now they are connecting it with the religion. The practice of religion in the day-to-day life. An understanding of the function of an artifact is often shaped by its resemblance with present-day things. Function of an artifact which is shaped and it resembles the present-day things like beads, then querns, stone blades, pots are obvious. These are the examples. Archaeologists also try to identify the function of an artifact by investigating the context in which it was found. They also try to identify the function of an artifact. Wherever the sites they were visiting, they were just excavating. After that, not only that to get the findings, the artifacts from that site, but they also tried to investigate it and correlate it with this, the which rituals they were used. What were the purpose? In which function it was used by the people? Whether it was found in a house, in drain, grave, or in kiln. This is all about that. And with this, suppose if it is found in the house, their importance was different. If it is found in drains, their importance was different. In the grave and in the kiln. So this way depends upon that which site after the excavation they found the different types of the artifacts. The problems of archaeological interpretation are perhaps most evident in attempts to reconstruct religious practices. This is what these archaeological interpretations, they try to reconstruct the religious practices. To focus on that, the religious practices of the Indus Valley people, Harappan people. Attempts have also been made to reconstruct religious beliefs. They always try to reconstruct, to find out the more and more this facts about that, the beliefs of the people, how they were practicing. By several times they try to examine the seals, some of which seem to depict ritual scenes. Many of the seals, they found that the ritual scenes were also depicted. In one of the seal, it has been mentioned in this Harappan site, there were 24 different signs was used on that seal. So that way they also try to depict the ritual scenes and with plant motifs are thought of the indicate of the nature worship. If suppose they found the plant has been engraved or embossed on this in a form of a motif, then they try to correlate it with that they were worshipping nature. Because there were no specific picture of god and goddesses were found. Many reconstruction of Harappan religion are made on the assumption. On this assumption basis only, they try to reconstruct the religious practices of the Harappan people. Now, later this tradition provide parallels with earlier ones. This is because archaeologists often move from the known to the unknown. That is from the present to the past. So, how they have known to unknown, which they were knowing and which they were not knowing. And they try to correlate it with the present to the past. So, this way, day-to-day life, what were they practiced? Whether the concept of the rituals were there or not. What type of the form of gods and goddesses were worshipped by them. Everything they try to correlate it with the findings. And with the findings means, if suppose artifacts are found in the home, in the houses, then they have been correlated it with the different meaning. The discovery of pots, querns, beads, etc. in the Harappan sites are and their graves provide enormous information. Now, these pots, these querns and the beads, these are the remains, the facts available with archaeologists, and through which only the archaeologists they try to find out the enormous information, the facts about the Indus people. Traces of cotton and dresses depicted on seals. because all they have the what organic material, they decay. But where it is the cotton and the dresses depicted on seals, on the seals, it is been there, and sculptures give us an idea about the dressing style of the Harappan people. Even though the dressing sense of the priest king, that also shows us that there were some upper garment concept was also there, along with that the garment concept of the lowers. And here the archaeologists, how they were getting these ideas? By findings on the seal, motifs. The terracotta figurines of women indicating the worship of mother goddess. This is the woman figure, a dancing girl, which is very famous evidence of the Harappan civilization. That figurine, what it indicates? The concept of the mother goddess. Plant motifs seem to suggest the practice of nature worship. The conical stones indicate linga worship. What we are worshipping Lord Shiva in a form of a linga. At that time, they were also worshipping the conical shaped stones, and which has been correlated by the archaeologist in a form of a linga, which is nowadays we considered it the different incarnation or different form of Lord Shiva. In some seals, a figure so seated cross-legged in a yogic posture. Sometimes it is surrounded by animals, has been regarded as a depiction of Proto-Shiva. Proto means early. What does the proto means? It means early. Proto-Shiva, that is an early form of one of the major deities of the Hinduism. So this cross-legged, that human figure is there, which is in a yogic posture. Not only in a form of a linga, but in a human figure also. And the Shiva, Lord Shiva is considered as one of the major deities of Hinduism, which were worshipped by the people in those days. Some animals, such as the unicorn, depicted on seals, seem to be mythical composite creatures. So this is also about that. The unicorn, which is depicted on the seals, which seem to be mythical and the composite creatures. The two important structures that have been found by archaeologists are the fire altars found at the Kalibangan and Lothal. Both these sites are in India. Kalibangan and Lothal. The Great Bath at Mohenjo-daro, something meant for ritual. This is the Great Bath. Completely it is mentioned for the rituals, not for the common public bathing place, not used in a everyday life, kept specially for the rituals. So this is all about that, the Harappan civilization. Now some of the questions are there, which is very important for the map study. First discovered Harappan site is that the Harappa. One of the Harappan site in Haryana is Banawali. Then the site where fire altars and plot field were found, it is in Kalibangan. A specialized answers are also given. This is the first one. Second is the Harappan site. It is in Haryana. Then site where fire altars and plot field were found is Kalibangan. And a specialized center for cell making was Balakot. The most recently discovered site in Haryana is Rakhigad. The site where water reservoir was found. Reservoir. There are two different types of the question. Canal and the reservoir. Canal is in Sartugai and reservoir it is in Dholavira. The important Harappan site from Gujarat, it is Lothal. The site where R.D. Banerjee conducted excavations, it is Mohenjo-daro. The major center of bead making, Chanhu-daro. It was a small settlement where the people, whatever the population is there, they were all involved in the art and craft production. Then one Harappan site now in Pakistan. This is anyone, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Chanhu-daro, Balakot, Kondezi. This is one you have to find it out which site is in Pakistan. So this is the map for the major Harappan sites. In this Chanhu-daro is here. Then we have many of these sites are there. Harappa, Kalibangan, Banavali, then Rakhigadi, Ganeriwala, these are Mohenjo-daro. Then we have Nageswar, Dholavira, Lothal. These are all the important sites of the Harappan civilization.